Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up. What we're about to talk about isn't a slowdown. It's not even a recession. What's coming isn't just a downturn. It's the disintegration of everything you thought was unshakable. And that, my friends, is a call to arms. You're waiting for the bang. You're waiting for the sound of sirens, the flashing lights, the headlines screaming crash. That's what you've been conditioned to expect, because the stories we've been told about economic downturns, about crises, always begin with drama, always begin with a big, loud moment that makes it obvious to everyone that the world has changed. But what's coming won't be loud, it won't be spectacular, it won't even make sense when it starts. It will creep, it will whisper, it will take root in small corners of your life, where you don't notice. That's why I call it a silent collapse. You see, when a plane falls out of the sky, everyone knows it. It's instant. The drama, the spectacle, the tragedy, it's visible. But when rust eats away at steel, when termites chew through the foundation of a house, it doesn't make any sound until one day that house isn't standing anymore. That's the danger of what's ahead. It won't feel like a catastrophe until you realize you're standing in the rubble. Think about this. Right now, in boardrooms, in governments, in households, there are cracks, tiny fractures in trust. People don't believe what the leaders are saying. People don't believe the markets will hold. People don't believe the promises they're told. And belief, ladies and gentlemen, is the glue of civilization. Once belief starts to erode, systems follow, quietly, slowly, invisibly. The real problem is not the numbers on a graph, it's not the economists drawing charts. The real problem is human psychology. It's how people respond when the rules they thought were permanent suddenly stop working. When you believed your job was safe, until it wasn't. When you thought your money had value, until it didn't. When you thought the world was predictable, until it unraveled. That's how a silent collapse begins. Not with banks shutting their doors overnight, but with the slow erosion of trust, of confidence, of certainty. And here's the truth you don't want to hear. Once trust goes, everything goes, and so people live their lives as if tomorrow will look like today. They cling to the illusion of stability. They go shopping. They buy cars. They plan holidays. And they don't realize that stability is the most expensive illusion we've ever sold ourselves, because stability is fragile. It's a sandcastle on the beach, beautiful until the tide decides otherwise. The question then is, what do you do? Do you stand there, watching the water creep closer, convincing yourself that maybe the tide won't come this time? Or do you prepare, adapt, move, rebuild on higher ground? The collapse that's coming won't announce itself. It won't give you a headline warning. It will be visible only to those who are awake enough, alert enough, courageous enough to read the signs. And here's the paradox. It will feel ordinary while it's happening. The extraordinary destruction of systems will be disguised as everyday life. You'll see businesses close, but you'll call it competition. You'll see jobs disappear, but you'll call it automation. You'll see currencies weaken, but you'll call it fluctuation. You'll explain away the warning signs, because the alternative, to accept that the world as you know it is ending, is too terrifying. But denial won't save you. The people who survive silent collapses are not the smartest. They're not the richest. They're not even the strongest. They're the most adaptable. They're the ones who don't wait for permission, who don't cling to nostalgia, who don't build fortresses around the past. They're the ones who see the cracks and start building differently. Because here's the mistake most of us make. We prepare for the last crisis, not the next one. We buy umbrellas for storms that already passed. We defend ourselves against threats that no longer exist. And in doing so, we miss the reality right in front of us. The collapse that's coming won't look like the last one. It will be stranger, subtler, and deeper. It will happen in your assumptions long before it happens in your economy. It will dismantle your confidence long before it dismantles your institutions, and when it does, the temptation will be to panic, to scream, to blame, to point fingers at governments, at corporations, at leaders. But blame is useless in a silent collapse, because blame doesn't build, blame doesn't innovate, blame doesn't adapt, only courage does. So here is the last truth I want you to take home. The collapse is inevitable. Whether it destroys you or defines you, that's the choice. When the silence grows loud, when the foundation gives way, when the house falls not with a bang but with a whisper, you'll have one question to answer. Were you the one clinging to the illusion of safety, or were you the one building the future in the ruins? because what's coming is worse than a recession. It's the slow death of what you thought was permanent. And if you're not awake, if you're not bold, if you're not adaptable, you'll wake up one morning realizing the world changed and you got left behind. And so the warning is simple. Don't wait for the crash. Listen for the silence. That silence is the sound of collapse. And only those who prepare now will be standing when the dust clears. The first thing that falls in any crisis isn't the stock market, it isn't the currency, it isn't even jobs. The first casualty is the human mindset. The collapse doesn't begin on the outside, it begins inside. It begins with the way people think, the way they frame their world, the way they respond to uncertainty, and once that goes, everything else follows. You've seen it before. A small disruption enters the system, and suddenly entire groups of people stop believing in themselves. The fear spreads faster than the problem itself. People freeze, they hold back, they wait for permission to move, they convince themselves that the worst is inevitable, and by doing so, they make it inevitable. That's the cruel irony of mindset collapse. It doesn't need to be true, it just needs to be believed. Think about it. A bank doesn't have to be insolvent for a run to happen. All it takes is a rumor, a whisper, a doubt, and suddenly the crowd is at the door, not because the money was gone, but because the confidence was gone. The same is true in life. You don't fail because failure is certain. You fail because you decide that success is no longer possible. And that decision happens in your head long before it happens in reality. When crisis comes, the battlefield isn't out there, it's in here. It's in your psychology. It's in your resilience. It's in your willingness to keep moving when others stop. That's why the people who survive, the people who thrive, are never the ones who had the perfect plan. They're the ones who refused to surrender their mindset. Let me tell you what happens when mindsets collapse. People start talking themselves out of opportunity. They see risks where there are none. They magnify problems and minimize possibilities. They look at a storm and see destruction instead of the rain that grows crops. They see walls instead of doors, and slowly they shrink. They stop imagining, stop building, stop dreaming. That's the real cost of crisis. Not the jobs lost, not the money evaporated, but the imagination that dies with it. You want to know how civilizations collapse. It's not just wars or famine. It's not even just corruption. It's when a generation loses the will to believe that tomorrow can be better than today. Once that belief dies, the collapse is already complete, because no economy can thrive without hope. No society can rise without belief. No human can build if they don't believe the building is worth it. So what's the lesson? Guard your mindset like it's your last defense, because it is. Guard it the way you guard your house, your family, your future. Don't let fear take residence in it. Don't let doubt colonize it, because once it does, it doesn't just live there. It multiplies. Doubt breeds more doubt. Fear breeds more fear. And soon you've built a prison inside your own head. And here's the part nobody tells you. It's not the loud panic you should fear. It's the quiet resignation. It's when people don't even fight back. When they shrug and say, that's just how it is. When the fire goes out of their eyes. When their language shifts from I will to I can't. That is the sound of the first casualty. That is the silence of a defeated mindset. But the opposite is also true. The strongest weapon in any storm is an unbreakable mindset. The person who decides, I will not be defined by this crisis. I will not be reduced to fear. I will not hand over my power to circumstance. That person becomes unstoppable. They see possibilities where others see problems. They take risks when others hide. They create when others consume. And because of that, they lead. Not because the storm is smaller for them, but because their mindset is bigger. History rewards those who refuse to let their mindset collapse. Every great entrepreneur, every great leader, every great nation. At some point, they faced collapse. The difference wasn't money. The difference wasn't luck. The difference was mindset. Some surrendered. Some stood tall. That is always the dividing line. So here's the challenge. When the pressure builds, when the silence grows heavy, when the collapse begins, ask yourself, what story are you telling yourself? Are you telling yourself that you are finished? Are you telling yourself that it's impossible? Or are you telling yourself that this is the moment, the test, the trial that will shape you into something unshakable? Because make no mistake, The words you repeat to yourself become your reality. If you declare defeat, you live in defeat. If you declare resilience, you build resilience. And the choice is yours, always yours, no matter how loud the crisis becomes. The truth is simple. The first casualty will always be mindset. But the first victory, the first comeback, the first breakthrough, it also begins there. That's the battlefield you must win. Because if you win in your mind, the world outside you has no choice but to follow. And so, when the storm comes, and it will come, remember this, the collapse begins with thought, but so does the resurrection. The death of belief is the end of everything. The rebirth of belief is the start of anything. Protect your mindset, because in the end, it is the only thing that stands between you and surrender. We were told a lie, a comfortable lie, the lie that life is stable, that once you achieve a certain level of success, it stays, that once your business is thriving, it will continue, that once a country is prosperous, it remains. But stability is the most seductive illusion humans have ever sold to themselves. Look around you. Every empire that once ruled the world thought it was stable. Every company that once dominated the market thought it was untouchable. Every individual who thought they had arrived believed stability was permanent. And yet, history is one long graveyard of people, businesses, nations that mistook temporary order for permanent security. That's the danger, not chaos, not crisis. The danger is believing that calm seas mean the storm is gone forever, because stability doesn't mean safety. Stability just means the storm hasn't reached you yet. You wake up in the morning, you drive the same route to work, you buy groceries from the same store, you come home to the same house. It feels safe, it feels predictable, but what you don't see is the fragility under the surface, the debt that props up the economy, invisible cracks in infrastructure, the politics playing behind closed doors, the fragile trust holding systems together. One small disruption and the illusion evaporates. And then people say, but how? How could it happen so suddenly? It didn't happen suddenly. It was happening all along. You were just too comfortable to notice. That's what stability does. It blinds you. It makes you lazy. It makes you believe that the way things are is the way they will always be. Think about your own life. When do you grow the most? When you're comfortable or when you're tested? When everything is predictable or when you're forced to adapt? Comfort feels good, but it's dangerous. Stability feels safe, but it's deceptive. It's the silence before the earthquake, the stillness before the flood. And when it finally breaks, it feels like the world betrayed you, when in truth, you betrayed yourself by believing in permanence. The illusion of stability is why people build businesses without innovation. It's why they save money without investing. It's why they live lives of repetition instead of reinvention. Because they believe tomorrow will look like today, but tomorrow is not today. Tomorrow is change. Tomorrow is disruption. Tomorrow is the storm, and here's the brutal truth. Stability isn't just an illusion. It's an addiction. People cling to it because it feels safe. They stay in jobs they hate because it feels stable. They keep relationships that kill their spirit because it feels stable. They defend broken systems because they're terrified of change, and yet change is the only constant. So the question becomes, what do you do when you realize stability is a mirage? You stop building for comfort, and you start building for resilience. You stop expecting permanence, and you start expecting disruption. You stop anchoring yourself in sand, and you start planting yourself in adaptability. The most successful people, the most enduring organizations, the strongest nations, they don't chase stability. They chase agility. They don't say, how do we keep things the same? They say, how do we thrive when things change? That's the mindset difference. One lives in illusion, the other lives in reality. Because here's what's coming. A wave of disruption so profound that those addicted to stability will collapse. The ones who survive won't be the ones who built the biggest walls. They'll be the ones who built strongest wings. Walls protect you until the tide rises. Wings protect you no matter what happens. Stability whispers to you, relax, you're safe. You've made it, and if you listen too long, you start sleeping through the alarm. But reality doesn't care if you're asleep. Reality doesn't care if you are comfortable. Reality shows up with disruption, with change, with chaos. and you either wake up and move, or you get buried where you stand. Every generation has a choice: to cling to the illusion of stability or to embrace the reality of change. The ones who cling become bitter, nostalgic, irrelevant. The ones who embrace change become leaders, innovators, creators. That's the line history always draws. So ask yourself today, are you living in the illusion of stability? Are you convincing yourself that because nothing has broken yet, nothing ever will? Are you repeating the lie that calm seas mean no storm is coming? Because if you are, you're already in danger. The challenge is not to protect stability. The challenge is to outgrow it, to stop needing it, to be so adaptable, so resilient, so courageous that whether the storm comes or the calm continues, you remain unshaken. The illusion of stability is seductive, but it's also lethal. Don't buy into it. Don't build your life, your business, your future on it. Because when it breaks, and it will break, you'll realize too late that safety was never in stability. Safety was always in adaptability. And when the tide rises, when the storm arrives, when the ground shifts beneath you, only one question will matter. Did you build for permanence, or did you build for change? If you built for permanence, the illusion will bury you. If you built for change, the future belongs to you. When times get uncertain, the instinct is always the same: build walls, pull back, protect what you have, defend your little patch of land, and hope the storm passes. It's fortress thinking, and it's the fastest way to guarantee your own destruction, because the world doesn't reward the ones who hide. It never has. It rewards the ones who step into the chaos and shape it. Yet, when people see disruption, their first instinct is retreat. Let me cut costs. Let me shrink operations. Let me hold on to what I already have. They call it caution. They call it strategy. But in truth, it's fear with a suit on. And here's the harsh reality. Fortresses don't make you safe. They make you stuck. A fortress gives you the illusion of security while quietly trapping you inside a cage. It stops you from expanding. It stops you from innovating. It stops you from seeing the opportunities hidden inside the crisis. Fortresses are tombs built in advance, and too many people are building theirs without even realizing it. Think about the great companies that once ruled the world. Kodak, Nokia, BlackBerry. These weren't businesses without resources. They weren't broke. They weren't powerless. But they built fortresses around what they already knew instead of adapting to what was coming. They defended old models instead of creating new ones, and the fortress became the coffin. Same happens in our personal lives. We create mental fortresses, beliefs we refuse to challenge, stories we tell ourselves about what is possible, rules we obey even when they no longer serve us. We say, "This is how it's always been done." We hide behind tradition, behind routine, behind certainty. And in doing so, we die a little before the real death comes. Here's the truth you must understand. In times of change, retreat is suicide. When the storm is raging, the answer isn't to build a higher wall. The answer is to learn to sail, to ride the wave, to move with the wind instead of against it. But fortress thinking feels good, doesn't it? It feels rational. It feels disciplined. It feels safe. You cut costs. You reduce risks. You sit tight. And you convince yourself that survival is strategy. But survival without growth is just a slow death. You're alive, yes, but you're not living. You're not moving. You're not evolving. You're just waiting for the collapse to finish what you already started. And here's the kicker. While you're hiding in your fortress, someone else out there is building bridges. Someone else is expanding. Someone else is grabbing the opportunities you're afraid to see. The world doesn't pause because you're scared. The game doesn't stop because you're hiding. The only thing that stops is you. History is clear on this. The leaders who rise in turbulent times are not the ones who defend their castles. They're the ones who break them down and march into the unknown. They're the ones who take bold bets, who refuse to be paralyzed by fear. They're the ones who know that survival alone is not victory. So ask yourself, where in your life are you building fortresses? Where are you pulling back instead of pushing forward? Where are you protecting instead of creating? Because those are the places where you're already losing. The fortress mindset kills innovation. It kills creativity. It kills leadership. It convinces you that the best thing you can do is defend, but defense without offense is defeat. Nobody ever won a war by hiding behind walls. Wars are won by those who take ground, who risk, who advance. So let me be clear. Fortress thinking won't save you. Not in this economy, not in this century, not in this lifetime. The pace of change is too fast. The disruption is too relentless. The walls you build today will already be obsolete tomorrow, and while you're busy maintaining them, the world outside is rewriting the rules. The solution is courage. The solution is movement. The solution is adaptability. It's not about having a fortress. It's about having a strategy that evolves. It's about having the audacity to build new models while the old ones are still working. It's about not waiting for collapse to force you into action. Because if you only act when the walls crack, it's already too late. By the time your fortress is under siege, the battle is lost. The winners are the ones who saw the shift coming and refused to retreat. So hear me when I say this. Fortresses are comfortable, but they're deadly. They promise safety, but they deliver stagnation. They make you feel smart, but they make you obsolete. If you want to survive what's coming, if you want to thrive, you must abandon fortress thinking. You must stop asking, how do I protect what I have? And start asking, how do I create what's next? Because protection is not progress, and in times of upheaval, progress is the only protection worth having. When the storm hits, when the ground shakes, when the tide rises, your walls will not save you. Your adaptability will. Your courage will. Your vision will. The future does not belong to those who defend fortresses. It belongs to those who build new worlds outside the fortress walls. Every era has its leaders, but not every era has the same kind of leadership. What worked yesterday will not work today, and what works today will not work tomorrow. The mistake too many people make in thinking leadership is permanent, that once you figure out how to lead, you can paste it forever. That is a lie. Leadership is not static. Leadership is situational. And right now, in this moment, the world is demanding a new kind of leader. You see, anyone can lead when times are good. Anyone can lead when the economy is booming, when the market is rising, when people are optimistic. Leadership in those moments is easy. You smile, you motivate, you ride the wave, but leadership in chaos, that's where the truth comes out. Leadership when nothing makes sense. Leadership when everything is uncertain. Leadership when the people who follow you are gripped by fear. That's when it matters. That's when the pretenders are exposed. This is one of those moments. This is the moment where the old playbooks are useless, where experience can betray you, where the strategies that once made you success can now guarantee your failure. Why? Because we are not facing a normal downturn. We are facing systemic change, and systemic change demands systemic leadership. The world doesn't need leaders who defend the status quo. It doesn't need managers of decline. It doesn't need caretakers of outdated systems. It needs builders. It needs visionaries. It needs people brave enough to say, the old way is gone. Here is the new way. And that requires courage, not the shallow courage of slogans and motivational quotes, but the raw courage of action. What does it mean to lead differently in this moment? It means being willing to tell the truth when the truth is uncomfortable. It means being willing to take risks when everyone else is playing safe. It means being willing to sacrifice short-term applause for long-term progress. It means standing alone if necessary, because leadership is not a popularity contest. It is a responsibility. Too many so-called leaders are hiding right now. They're waiting. They're watching. They're praying that things go back to normal. But what they don't realize is that normal is dead, and waiting for its return is a waste of time. The leaders who rise now will be the ones who accept reality as it is, not as they wish it was. And here's the paradox. In moments like this, leadership is both harder and easier. Harder because the path is unclear, the risks are higher, the costs are greater. Easier because most people are frozen, most people are scared, most people are waiting for direction. And if you have the clarity, the conviction, the courage to step up, people will follow, because in chaos, certainty is magnetic. But certainty doesn't mean pretending to have all the answers. Certainty means being clear about the questions you're willing to tackle. It means being honest about the challenges ahead while refusing to be paralyzed by them. People don't need perfect leaders. They need present leaders. They need leaders who show up, who own the responsibility, who take decisions when others hesitate. Leading differently also means redefining success. It's no longer about quarterly profits alone. It's no longer about titles, offices, and perks. It's about resilience. It's about building systems that can bend without breaking. It's about creating opportunities where others only see obstacles. Success in this moment is not about looking good, it's about being useful. And understand this: leadership is not a speech. It's not a motivational soundbite. It's not an Instagram post. Leadership is choices. Leadership is trade-offs. Leadership is taking the weight of uncertainty on your shoulders so the people who follow you can keep moving forward. That is what leadership means now. So the question is, are you willing to lead differently? Are you willing to abandon the comfort of the old playbook? Are you willing to face criticism, misunderstanding, even resistance, for the sake of creating something new? Because if you are not, then step aside. The world cannot afford leaders who only know how to lead yesterday, right now. Leadership is not about protecting what you have, it's about imagining what could be built. It's not about waiting for the storm to pass, it's about steering through the storm. It's not about being safe, it's about being significant. This moment is not asking for leaders who conform, it is asking for leaders who transform, leaders who understand that the collapse of old systems is not the end, it's the beginning. Leaders who can turn rubble into foundations, uncertainty into opportunity, fear into fuel. So let me say it clearly, this is the moment to lead differently. Not tomorrow, not when. Things are calmer now, because the people who wait will watch the future being built without them. And the people who act will be the ones who define what that future looks like. Leadership in times like these is not optional. It is the dividing line between irrelevance and influence, between decline and dominance, between being forgotten and being remembered. The old way is gone. The old leaders are finished. The question is simple. Will you step up? Will you rise? Will you lead differently? So I leave you with this. Your greatest asset is not your balance sheet. It's your capacity to unlearn complacency and relearn resilience. What's coming is worse than a recession. But worse doesn't mean dead. It means primal, raw, transformative opportunity. The question is, will you be the architect of what emerges, or a casualty of what collapses?